Hello, this is Ron. I'm doing this after the webinar. During the webinar, I was unable, or I noticed that I was unable to get fresh quotes. My intraday time was not correct, and it was operator error, of course. I had opened the program Thinkorswim on my network on a laptop, and somehow it had frozen or become disconnected, and it wouldn't allow me to update my primary computer on the same network. So my time, I believe, was stuck at 2:10 p.m. But it doesn't affect anything that I was talking about in the webinar. So I just wanted to come in here and see how things ended for the day. So I'm going to go into the industries, and I will go under my tools menu, and you'll see this in the video itself, and I'm going to rebuild these indexes since I have the current quotes now. I'm just updating the groups. It's using the end of day information. And by the way, if you have Thinkorswim and HGSI, as soon as the market closes, you can do this with the closing prices. I'm going to click on my designer again. I don't need to do that. I'm going to go to my industries, and now I'll click on my intraday demand supply view, and nothing really changed from the time that well, I'm sorry, it did change. Life insurance remains on top, but e-commerce discretionary worked its way up to the top of the groups, and this is with the closing data at 4 p.m. Reinsurance, trucking moved up. Let's see where the steels ended. They were the leaders this morning. Find next. Down at number 64, that's where it was when I was doing the video. So not much change there. And I'm going to move up to all securities now, and I'll just click on the scorecard intraday. And these are the stocks that finished at the top of the list with my combo ranking. And I didn't talk about the combo ranking in the main or during the live webinar, so let me talk about it briefly right now. What this does, and this is an excellent way to prospect for stocks during the day, it just takes the three component parts: the intraday percentage range, the intraday percentage one-day change, and the intraday percent volume divided by the 50-day moving average volume. And that volume is calculated. This is an estimated number during the day. But Calix ended up on top. Meat is a stock that I talk about in the webinar. It's a stock that I'm in. Got in yesterday. I'll just bring it up. And I review this in the video itself or during the webinar, so I'm not going to talk about it, but it did close at its high, as you can see. A good trade yesterday. I picked it up on a buy stop about right in here, but this is one of these stocks that I found early in the morning, and you'll see the technique that I use for that. In fact, the technique is the scorecard intraday among some other views that I use. That's it for the introductory video. I just wanted you to know that even though the amounts or the time was incorrect, and consequently the information over here, the data over here, because I had an operator error when I was setting up. I just logged into that laptop and forgot that I had Thinkorswim open on it, and it froze, and it froze my information on my primary computer. Enjoy the webinar. I think you'll find it interesting with this chart. I talk a lot about the chart, which is my new volume point of control. There is an intraday version and also It's number 7 in the intraday, and it's number 8 under stock charts in the end of day. The difference is this is in end of day information for prospecting, whereas number 7 here is intraday information, so you can prospect and get that information during the day. Thank you for listening. Okay, here it is, June 1st, 2018. Hard to believe it's June already. And the stock market continues to baffle us, but it's still caught in a trading range, but we've certainly seen some active days recently. And what I'm going to discuss today is how I use HGSI, and I'm going to focus specifically on a new chart that I put up both for intraday and end of day. It's the volume point of control, or volume at price is the name of the indicator. It's been in the software since Matt released the version with VPA, and I really haven't done a lot with it until now. And what I did is I went back and I reread Anna Colling's, I think her last name's pronounced Colling, her book. And if you are new to HGSI and you don't know what I'm talking about, you should go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and buy the PDF version of the book. Let me see if I have it here. I think I've got it. There it is right there. And I'll just go to the cover. The name of the book is A Complete Guide to Volume Price Analysis. And I read the book when it first came out. I've recommended it to a ton of people. And, you know, with all things, you forget some of the salient points as time goes by. And so I decided not last weekend, the weekend before, that I would spend the weekend reviewing the book, and that's exactly what I did. And she is a strong advocate of volume price analysis or volume spread analysis, whatever you want to call it. And she uses it like we use it, with some small differences. Her idea of a spread is not what was taught originally with volume spread analysis. We use the entire body, including the wicks, for our spread, and she just uses the body. But other than that, there's really a very few differences, and that's a minor difference. But all of our signals, or all of HGSI signals, I keep saying "are" because I've worked with George and Matt for so long, but it's their program, and I'm just a user, just like you are. And anyway, our techniques are very similar, if not almost identical to what Anna does. She's very good at it. She's been doing it for over 20 years. Her advantage was that she went to a seminar 20 years ago, and Tom Williams was there, and he's the guy that came up with Trade Guider. And he was just kind of there, and somebody else was teaching it, but she spent over 5,000 pounds. She's in Britain for a 2-week course, and she says in the book that it could have been condensed into about 2 days rather than 2 weeks, but they drug it out. And anyway, her advantage was that this is the only thing she was exposed to at the time, so she didn't get bogged down in all of these indicators and things like that. So that was a huge advantage. And if you read her book closely, you'll see that she doesn't use any indicators other than volume price analysis, support and resistance. I don't believe in her book she even uses any moving averages at all. But one of the things she does use is volume at price, and this is chapter number 9. If you Get the book, and you should read it, and you'll get an idea of how she and her husband David use this indicator. But once again, it's all based upon volume and price, nothing else. No mathematical formulas, as she likes to say. Okay, so read the book. If you've read it, go back and reread it, and I'm going to try to give you some insights into these charts. Also, let's go into all securities here and see what's going on while I talk. And what I want to point out is I am working with the quick start. If you're new to HGSI, or if you're old to HGSI, or if you've been with me, been with us a long time, these two folders are really all you need to get started. Now, if you really want to delve into the program, there's a lot more under the basic end of day. And also, you get down here and there's a lot of complicated stuff. You don't need it. Just stick with these two folders and follow these processes that I'm going to be talking about, or going to be showing you today and in other webinars, and you'll be just fine. Now, you can see that I'm in the wrong view, and I need to go to Intraday. I have to have two sets because the fields in the warehouse views are totally different. For example, this is the end of day view, and this information is totally different than the scorecard intraday, where we are getting this information directly from Thinkorswim. Now, I use Thinkorswim. Let me tell you what I use. I use two programs primarily and a third for some scans. And I use HGS Investor. I use Thinkorswim for my trading platform, and also to drive the data intraday in HGSI, and also use EdgeRater for some of my scans. But my primary emphasis is upon HGSI and Thinkorswim. You do not, now a lot of people will disagree with me, but you do not need to spend a bunch of money on other programs. You just don't need it. I can do everything I want to do in HGSI, and you can do the same thing. And that's all I'm going to say about that. I know I can say this with some authority, because Jeffrey, when Ian and I were doing the workshops, he would come to the workshops. He would have every software program there is, and he would always kid me about having as many as he had. I could never have as many programs as Jeffrey has, but I've been through a lot of them. And what I've settled on are HGSI and Thinkorswim. And you're going to see the power of the program as soon as I quit talking. Now, what I'm doing is I'm updating in the background right now. I've got it set up with Thinkorswim on a 5-minute automatic update. I've got a very powerful computer here, but you don't need a powerful computer. One thing, if you use Thinkorswim and you're using it to drive HGSI, if you download it, install, or if you installed Thinkorswim in the past, install over it, because there has been an update. It's been 3 or 4 months ago now, with some files that added, which make it work properly with HGSI, especially on the automatic updating. Now, you may not want to update automatically if you're not sitting here staring at the screen, so you have options. Intraday is enabled, but here are the options. You can see that I'm using Thinkorswim and updating intraday every 5 minutes. So essentially, I have real-time quotes, and that's quite a deal, really, because I use Thinkorswim anyway for my trading platform, so I don't have to pay anything additional for intraday quotes. I want to emphasize that I'm a user just like you are. I give away all of my files, just like Jeffrey does and the other people who have contributed to HGSI. The reason I do that is I know that it can be complicated to provide these views, filters, and combos. And I don't want to spend my life supporting and answering questions about how to do this, how to do these things. So I would rather do them and then share them. And as of a month ago, these files, I used to have to send them to George. He would post them when he had time. Now the files are on my server. So when I do an update, and I may do an update intraday, when I do an update, I post it on the server, and the files that you get are the same files that I have. And I don't mind giving them away. In fact, I want to give them away. And the reason I want to give them away is because I want people to subscribe to HGSI because it's the only program you need other than something to drive it. Now, if you don't have Thinkorswim, you can get quotes from Google, but it's a much slower process. So I would recommend, if you're in the United States especially, and I know people in England and so on don't have access to Thinkorswim, which is unfortunate, and they don't have the flexibility, but it's still also great as an end-of-day program. Now, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't have anything to sell. You can join the Insider Club if you want to. The Insider Club, I provide updated files all the time. They get the same views, filters, and combos as you do, but I put them all in a single file, so all of theirs are updated automatically at the same time whenever they download the data. You don't have to go add them individually like you do at the website. And speaking of the website, let me bring this up. First of all, if you go to your help menu and go to the add-ons page and you scroll down to the bottom, these are my basic files right here. You just download this zip file. If you want the advanced end of day and intraday files and filters, which you don't need, and don't confuse yourself with them if you're a newbie, click on this, click on that, and download that file. These are the user groups, which used to be the W&B user groups, but newbies, people new to HGSI, had no idea what the W&B user groups were, so I changed the name to Market Analysis User Groups. If you do not have a pretty fast computer, if you don't use those groups or don't want them, don't install them. And if you have installed them, you can always delete them. But I use them. Most people I know use them, and I keep them up to date. They're very, very useful, and you'll see them. These are the files I send out to the Insider Club. Here's the Market Analysis User Group, and you can see there's a lot of material in here for market analysis, and I don't think I'll have time to get in to any of that today. What I do want to do is mention that if you are a member of the Insider Club, or if you're a new user at HGSI, George and I agreed to help people stick around, because HGSI can be a complicated program, that I would give them their first 6 months in the Insider Club for nothing, for a bonus. And just so you could learn the program, but also if you are a new user or are going to be a new user, contact me about joining our Skype group. The Skype group is only for Insider Club members or people who have taken my webinars. And those people, if they're Insider Club members, they've taken the webinars. And what you'll find there are discussions. Paul Reike contributes a lot to it, and other people are on there. Yeah, just email me, and Jim, I'll send you the how to join the Skype group. But you know, we point out stocks that we're looking at, we're not extremely active, and just because a stock is mentioned doesn't mean you buy it. And we don't get into all kinds of complicated analysis. It's KISS, keep it simple, stupid. And I'm talking about myself, or to myself. Uh, this stuff gets way too complicated, and it doesn't have to be. Okay, now let me get started. I've given you my talk there. Another advantage for the Insider Club is when I do hold a webinar, you get a $100 discount, and after the first webinar, which would be $4.95 for a member of the Insider Club, it's only $100 for each additional one. And I try to do a couple a year just to because I'm always doing something new with the program. Okay, let's get on with it. Sorry I got so long-winded there, but I want to show you something. I'm gonna do a little PowerPoint presentation here, and I'm going to see if this will work for me. And I need to swap this and this, and I haven't been doing the standard risk disclaimer, but I should, even though I don't recommend stocks and these things, and I know none of you are going to lose a lot of money and sue me, but I'm putting this up here from now on. It's just a standard risk disclaimer. I'm not going to take the time to read it. But the key sentence is this webinar is for educational purposes only, and all trading strategies are used at your own risk. Let's move down to this. Now this looks really nice, doesn't it? It looks like it's real. Well, it's a Snagit capture from this morning, and you can see that I did this at 9:32 a.m., 2 minutes after the market opened. I noticed that Jeffrey posted that he is using a program called Trade Ideas to possibly come up with some trade ideas early in the morning. You can do that, and I've done that before. That's something I tried in the past. Or you can use HGSI because I've got it all set up for you. And I'm scanning all these stocks and sorting on the raw combo. And these are the stocks that appeared at 9:32 a.m. And let's look at a few of these. Here's Momo. I'm going to take a look at Momo. SB was in there. I've got a position in that. I picked it up yesterday. Twitter's in here. Lulu, big mover today. These are coming up the first 2 minutes. And this information over here shows a percentage price change in those first 2 minutes. The range, trading at the top of the range. The intraday change from the last to the from the last price from the open, and the projected volume. Now these volume figures are obviously not correct this time of day, but it just shows you that there is heavy buying at the open on these stocks. So you can look for stocks immediately if you have Thinkorswim. Now I'm going to move down to the next one. This is $15 and up. I forgot to capture this, so I came back at 9:48 a.m., which is 20 minutes approximately after the market opened. And YEXT Inc. was at the top of the list based upon the combo, up 6.95%, trading nearly at the top of its range, huge volume. This stock had a big day. VMware was there. Steels were strong early because of the tariffs and so on. So steels were strong early. I'll show you that. Down to the next one. This is leaders up. These are all, if you look over here as I flip through these are the screens that I was using, and notice they're in the quick start. These are the leaders up intraday on volume. Momo was at the top of the list, followed by Twitter. Here's Yext, or however you pronounce it, YEXT, Auto Home, and so on. Plenty of opportunities to scan for potential trades early. Now this is what the groups look like at that time of day. Notice this says 6-1. This was today. I don't have a timestamp on this one, but steel producers were at the top, then banks and wealth management and so on. We're going to take a look and see where the strength is now. Okay, now this one's sorted on advancers divided by decliners. The next one, which is industry groups up for the day, is sorted by the percentage price change. Steels are up 1.85% at the open. Steel producers, and then in descending order down the list. These are the industry groups that are down. Were down. These are the industry groups that were up. 161 up, 12 down. So you can see it was a very strong open. I'm getting all this out of HGSI running Thinkorswim. I don't need other programs. Okay, now the next thing is I switched to all securities from industries, and these are the stocks that were up in the groups. I'm going to flip back to the industries, to the industry groups that were up. Steels are on top, diversified banks are second. So the way I have this set up, these stocks, if you go to all securities with the combo, here's the steel producers, here's the diversified banks. Everything falls into place. It's very simple. Now, I can't imagine most users would ever do this. This is why I give my files away. I want you to have the same access to this as everybody who uses my files. Now, these are stocks and groups that are down for the day. These are actually down here in the intraday basic scans, which you'll get. These stocks are stocks that gapped up at least 2% for the day at the open. This was at 937. So you can see the gap is at least 2% on here. A lot of steels if you look over here to the right. Steel producers. Everybody was chasing steel. I don't think that lasted. And the next one, this is an intraday bullish reversal, 2% off the low. If you look right here in these files. So these may have started out even negative, but they're coming off of their low. So you can see a lot of green here. This is all from this morning. And then finally, these are stocks with active options. This is number 3 down here under the basic intraday scans. If you trade options, you can find out where the action is with the options. So most of these are up here in the quick start, but if you install the basic, you're going to have these other views that I just showed. All right. Now let me see if I can get out of this program. So what I just went through there is showing you that you can get a tremendous amount of information and see where the action is when the market opens. Now, hopefully, if you do, you can buy into some of these stocks. You can do it on the long side or the short side with the groups moving down. But it's not easy, is what I should say, to buy some of these stocks, especially early on. I like to wait for them to settle down a little bit, and then maybe take some trades. But this is as of now. Here is this is the scorecard intraday. But before I do this, let's go into the designer. I want to see how the industries have changed. There's 6 minutes left in the market week. And I'm going to select the industries. I'm going under Tools, and I'm going to rebuild the indexes in the group. Now what this is doing, it's taking the current quotes, which are no more than 5 minutes old, and it's building all of these user groups. So anytime during the day, intraday, and Paul Reike does this a lot, he sees what is moving. So notice I'm in all securities, but I updated the industries. So I'm going to go down to the industries and sectors. I'll click on that, and once again, I want to close my end of day so I don't get confused. Top down views for market and group analysis intraday. Click on the first one. Demand supply. Do you see steel at the top? I do not. This is how the market has changed intraday. The life insurance index has 26 advancers, 1 decliner. Flow control. Measurement instruments. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hit my space bar. I've already typed steel in here. I'm going to find the first. The raw material steel suppliers index is down here. That isn't the one I was looking at. I'll hit this again and click on find next. Steel producers down at number 69. So you can see that the steels lost momentum during the day. But this insurance group has been up here for a good part of the day. You can do this at any time and check. Now you can go top down from here. What I look at first though is I go over here and I see that this life insurance index has accumulation of D, the VPA best fit long-term, medium, and short-term trends are down, and the fan is down. What does that tell me? It tells me that they're bottom fishing, these life insurance stocks. This is the index, and here is the candle that I just created. But let's do this. Let's go down to the industry group, and then I'm going to click on scorecard intraday, and this will tell me, based upon a combo called effort versus result, which is based upon price, volume, and intraday range, which of these stocks are doing best for the day. And Genworth Financial. Now I'm going to bring up Genworth Financial, and this is one of the charts that I'm talking about. So let's address this now. And I'll be using this chart from now on for the rest of the 35 or 40 minutes, however long I go. And what it is a chart which uses what we call the volume point of control. And by the way, if you just came into the webinar, here is, let me see if I still have this in here. Yes. Here is a link to a document that George produced on volume at price using information from Matt. And I'll bring it up here in a minute and go over it. But these lines represent different periods of the volume point of control. Now, what's a volume point of control? It is where most of the volume has traded over different time periods. Now, let me bring that PDF file up now and see if I can find it here. I probably closed it. No, there it is. Okay, volume at price. This is an indicator that Matt, who does all the programming for HGSI, and he does a great job. He's been doing it for years, and he really knows what he's doing. What he did is he looked at the volume at price indicators that were around the internet. I think he went to Anna's site, looked at what they were doing, and then he came up with his version of it. And this, he used a yellow line here and a black chart. This is the volume point of control, where most of the volume, if you look over here at the bars, you'll see the bars. This is where the activity has been. So what happens is these areas can form support and resistance areas and give you a visual of where you may find that. Now he has a single volume point of control in this example. What I've done is I put multiple points of volume points of control in my charts, and I'll show you why. This is the control panel, which you'll be seeing because I'll be bringing it up. But what I have done here, and I didn't highlight all this, you should read through all this. I probably should have highlighted this. Volume at price works by taking the highest and lowest price the stocks trade at during the period and dividing that into a range of evenly sized price buckets, and you'll see that too. The more buckets, the higher the number of the bars. This is something I thought was really important. You split the volume into positive and negative volume, and then we can see how much was positive and how much was negative trading at certain price levels. So the red indicates negative volume, the green indicates positive volume. You'll see that in my charts, or the charts that you're going to have too. You also have the option of spreading that volume over all of the buckets, or you can select only count the closing and not the range. I do not generally do this, and I'll show you that too. Don't get confused. I'll show you what it does. When drawing the price buckets, the longest price bucket represents the price where most of the volume was traded. This is the volume point of control. That's just where most of the volume was traded. And on this chart, that would be right here, because you can see all the activity was in here. This was an accumulation area in this chart. A lot of buying, because you can see that based upon the histogram. And in this chart right here, it looks like he didn't use positive and negative volume on that one. Okay, I don't want to get bogged down on this. Let's go to the live and see if we can, if I can clarify this for you. I'll do my best. So when I put the chart out originally, I didn't have the VPA information up here. I had the VPA flags on the chart. Paul Reiki requested that I put this up here, so I moved this warehouse view down. This is called a warehouse view because this information comes from the warehouse fields in HGSI. And this is all intraday information. So it looks like the market's closed. In that case, let me go in and change this to manual updates, so it doesn't update in the background, although it really doesn't affect me on this computer. And I'm just going to update the data, all the data now, to get final data. Notice how quickly it goes into Thinkorswim and pulls out all of these stock quotes. Takes less than a minute. So if you don't want to update it in the background, don't. So this is the way this particular stock, Genworth Financial, I just happened to be in here. This is the way it traded. It opened at 350. It traded to 353. The last is 350. What do we have? We have a doji over here. Didn't go anywhere. The intraday range, it closed at 62.5% of its daily range. What does that mean? It means that this doji, this closing price here, is at 62.5% of the daily range. If it's in the upper two-thirds, I consider it a pretty strong close. This is an indecisive close on this. Notice that the volume was lower than normal. I'm going to point that out. It didn't even get up to the 50-day moving average volume. So on this stock, really, this was a disappointing day. It did close up from yesterday's close. So if you were in it here, you made money. If you bought it at the open, you didn't make a dime because it closed exactly where it opened. And here's the volume, 50-day moving average volume. You can see that it's a lot less. And here's the intraday time, which, well, hold it. Let's see. That doesn't look right. Well, for some reason it says 210. I don't know. I assumed I was updating. I just updated. Hey, Paul, check and see what your time is on yours. You know what? Now, my Thinkorswim is updating. Well, let's get on with this. He'll check it out for me. I noticed that my Thinkorswim had somehow I logged on to another computer and it had stopped, and maybe I didn't restart it. But it looks like it's working now. Anyway, this line here represents the volume activity over 22 days. I originally had 24 days. I changed it to 22 because between 22 and 23 days are the normal of trading days. Oh, your toss is off. All right. Well, okay, it doesn't matter. So okay, my toss must not have been running. Sorry about that. I'm not going to let it ruin the video here, though. So it closed up 10 cents. But this area here, over 22 days, this is where most of the volume activity has been, and you can pretty much see that. Now, what I am allowing you to do, or us to do, is edit the indicator and go in, right mouse click, and select one of 3 different volume at price indicators. So this is 22 days. A window will pop up and we have all these options. Notice the periods are 22, the volume buckets are 10, and if I select these two, split volume into positive and negative volume, and draw volume buckets, these are no longer ghosted. And then if I click on this one, I can display the bucket details on the chart with a crosshair. So what that does is it brings the buckets up to the top. I'm only using 10 buckets. It really doesn't matter. But the way this works is if the closing price of the daily candle is higher than the prior days, the volume will be attributed to or added to the positive side. So on this day, because this was the close on the prior day, on this day, all of the volume went to the positive side. Now, why is this red down here? Because on this day, this particular close was less than the prior day, so this area is red. But notice there is an overlap here where this candle is white. It's in this portion of the slice, or the bucket, I should say, not the slice, and it also hits this part, this area here, and it also touches up here. So this volume is divided among these 3 areas, and it's added on that, so consequently we have a lot of green. Okay, thank you, Stephen. I'll take a look and see if I can update it again. It's not that big a deal as long as you get the concepts here. So all of these, because there were 3 days in a row, this is all very strong volume, and it's added to the long side. Now let's see if I can figure out why we have this red in this over here. It looks like it's because this wick on this candle barely touched this slice, and a portion of the volume went to the negative side because this was a down day from here. So if I click on here, and if you look up here, you can see that the volume bucket price range, if this number over here tells you what percentage in this slice went to the positive side, and it was 92.93%. Now you don't have to get this technical about this. You can just look at these and you can tell that the price was moving up here sharply, and then it started consolidating here. So the volume point of control is right here because this is where most of the action is. Now notice when we're getting some black bars here that the portion of the buckets is much more red. Like this one here, only 44.94% of this bucket went to the positive side. So the stock is consolidating through here. That's the 22-day version of this. Now, what you have to do if you want to take a look at this, you just edit the indicator and just deselect when you leave. I'm saying that I'm saying right now, stock Jaguar, is you are seeing support in this area right here. This is the volume point of control right now. Okay, and when you put well, let me do it again. Let me use a different one. Let's use the 10-day right here. The brown line represents a 10-day. This is what I use for my trigger bar to get me into a stock. I'm going to edit the 10-day. Okay, so I'm going to split the volume again, and I'm going to draw the volume buckets. And notice we get a much different look here because I'm only using 10 periods. And it's hard to see where the 10 periods in. What I had to do when I created the chart was I have to overlay the price on top of this area here, or we wouldn't be able to see the price. But it comes out here 10 days. Now in this instance, we're seeing a lot, or probably equal amounts of red and green in this area. So there's really nothing definitive about the 10-day. But when I go back to the 22-day, we're going to get a different picture. And all of this volume down here, now where the support is right here, the support and resistance, this area right here, the consolidation, is the volume point of control over these 22 days. And this is the end of 22 days over here. I need to point this out. And these buckets, notice the high point on this candle, it goes up to there, and over these 22 periods, the low point coming down from this area would include this candle. The low point would be right there. So here's the low and here's the high. This is how the slices are formed. What this is saying, and this is probably not a great example, it's a $3 stock, is that there would be, if this area breaks down here, which is providing support down here, because of all the buying down here on these green bars, that would more than likely provide some more support down there. Okay, thanks for letting me know. Anyway, I use the green bar as my trigger, and I'm going to talk about that more. Here's the trigger here, but notice that it went negative yesterday, and it did not surpass that brown line. So I'm saying the bears are still in control of this stock, even though it was up 10 cents today. Let's find some better examples. Anyway, the life insurance, look at the volume here. Volume stinks on these stocks today. The life insurance group, because of our scorecard rating, this was Ian's work many years ago, or EPS rank, relative strength rank, group rank. The ERG is the sum of them. The group is 14. These are bottom fish stocks. If you like to bottom fish, you can find them very easily just by, let me go back to my demand supply. Looking over here, if you see all red and then it's near the top, well, here, let me sort on roll combo. You're going to find that these groups, while this has B accumulation, short term it's down. though, you're going to find that you can probably go in here and look for some stocks that are beaten down. I generally like to find stocks that are in uptrends and they're pulling back and setting up again, because those stocks have a tendency to go on and on. What's your question, Frank? If a candle touches 3, if anywhere the candle touches in those buckets, it is volume is either added or subtracted for that day. Let's find some better examples. I'm going to move away from the groups and let's go back to the all securities. And I'm going to go to the scorecard intraday. In fact, I think I'll go to scorecard intraday $15 and up. No, I'm not either. I'm going to go back to the other. Now see, my time is still wrong. Let me try another update and see if my Thinkorswim. I noticed on my other computer that it wasn't updating, and I had been downstairs working and I logged on with another one, and that may have killed what I was doing. Now, Frank, it's distributed over those buckets, and I don't know the exact math on it. I'd have to talk to Matt about it, but I think, and this is just what I'm thinking, if it covers the whole bucket, I think it's distributed more to that bucket. If it barely touches a bucket, I think, but I don't know that for sure. I need to talk to Matt about that. Okay? Now, here is the way this ended up. It still says I'm not getting all of these. This one says 417, so I'm getting part of them. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, this is a stroke of luck because this is a stock that I happen to be in. And I did not plan that. I bought this stock yesterday. Why did I buy it yesterday? Because it was showing up in the scorecard intraday. It was near the top. It was breaking out right here. I looked at the volume point of control, which is the brown line, which has been positive since clear back here at $2.90 approximately. It had been moving up. The stock has been consolidating sideways for a long time. Here's an effort to rise, 2 spinning tops, and when it cleared this, I had a buy stop in, and I believe, I can't remember, I'd have to look. I believe it had to clear this area right here. I had a buy stop in and I was stopped in to the stock, and you can see that it's been a good trade. It's an inexpensive stock. Another reason I bought it, in addition to it coming up in the scorecard intraday, I'm on my number 7 chart. I'm just going to move up 1 chart to number 6 because it was starting to generate a pocket pivot, but more importantly, notice this line here. That is the group line. The group was moving up yesterday. So what I did is I went in and I rebuilt all of the industries, just like I showed you earlier in this video. And I noticed that this line was going up, and I looked for some other stocks in the group. There was a news story on this stock that they were expanding into China, I believe was the news. So I put the buy stop in, and I just went for it, and it worked out very nicely. And you can see that this is a powerful move. When you're using VPA, you like to see volume increasing as the stocks go up. Now this closed, where did it close? It closed at 96.87% of its intraday range on heavy volume. So that is a good indication that buyers are coming in to support this stock. We'll see how that works out. Now, let me go back here. And if I don't get all this covered, I'm going to be doing more of these webinars. We'll be using this chart a lot because I think it has tremendous value. So here we are. You can see that this got up here to the top, so a new bar was formed here. In fact, two new bars. No, this bar was formed yesterday because this wick went into this, but it didn't look like this. It's been added to today because of this, and remember, all this volume here is added to these buckets as it goes higher. So you can see that even in this area here where it was consolidating, notice that most of these candles were white, and this one closed higher than this one closed lower, this closed lower, this closed higher, this one actually closed lower, so that would have been a negative and would have added to the rose color over here. But this one closed higher than the prior day. It's a doji, so that would have been positive volume, but volume's very light here. Look what happens when the volume picks up. You can see that these bars get a lot longer because of the heavy volume. It's a very nice indicator because it does everything that I want it to do, or we want it to do, which is use price and volume. Now the support on this at the 22-day level was clear down here. Look how this stock consolidated in through here, and then it started moving up. Before that, it was down here at the 44-day level, which is equivalent to 2 months, and then it moved up from there. Now, let me move down to a different stock. This is Natural Grocers, and I don't have the current time on that. That was 210 also. Let me do an F2 or F5 and see if it changes. Of all days for me to screw it up, huh? That's all right. You're getting the idea. Still says 210. Okay. The blue line, Gary, represents 44 days, 2 months. Up here at the top, look up at the top. That is the volume point of control for 2 months. You can see it consolidated down here and then started moving up. Now, you can take this and you can scroll backwards and you can see how that changes. But what I'm interested in is the volume point of control now. But this is where the activity was over a 2 month period. This is where the activity is over a 1 month period. Even though there's no consolidation here, because there was such a big move up in these white candles and a lot of volume, that all goes in to both the 10 period volume point of control and the 22-day volume point of control. I know it's a little bit confusing. It closed at 11.18, so it fell back a little bit, right? $0.06, okay, no big deal. Okay, Marilyn, I will. I'll explain that in a minute. I was just seeing, and let me do something here. Okay. What I want to do is I want to... oh, that's not what I want. That's not what I want either. Here, let's use this stock here. What a beautiful stock this has been. And it continues to be a beautiful stock. Now, this is the... well, let me go in here. This is a 1 month volume point of control. You can see right in here that most of the activity was right here before the stock took off again. This is a consolidation area. And the brown line represents the volume point of control as a graph. This is the horizontal line. Let me change this to both a horizontal and a graph line. Now this may be a little confusing, but maybe not. So what Marilyn asked me to do is you can go back. Rather than scrolling backwards, I am using the volume point of control 10 period as a graph line. It's kind of, it's to keep me in a stock, and it's also could possibly be used as a stop on a closing basis. Okay, but this line now represents where the 22 period or 22 day volume point of control was at this point in time. So back here, it was clear back here, and you can see the stock price was well above it. Now this is the 10 period volume point of control compared to the 22 period volume point of control. Now this horizontal line represents where the 22 period volume point of control is today, but it was down here and it moved up as the stock moved up. Now let me clear that out of there so this doesn't get too confusing, but that's the way it works. So I'm going to get rid of both of these. Yes, I do, Gary. That's oh, okay. Now I got it. I need to go back and fix that. Let me show you that. Let me talk about that next, because here I've already gone nearly an hour, and I'll go a little more. I can see we're going to have another session on this. Horizontal line only. This avoids the confusion. I'm interested in where the volume points of control are now, and I'm primarily interested in where support would be if this falls back. Support, you can see that there would probably be some strong support right in here. But the volume point of control on this stock, well, let's do this. It started firing clear back here because it went above the brown line. This area here on the chart is my VPOC 1010, or volume point of control. It's the thing is you can have little pullbacks here, 1 day pullbacks. And if you do, and if you get stopped out or shaken out, you better be willing to go back in and buy it back. But a lot of times these pullbacks are on lighter volume. Like this one here was on heavy volume. Notice this was an effort to fall. Nice run up here, but I'm sure that on this day, well, I'm not sure, but I'm going to look, that oil took a dip. You can see that oil took a dip that day. And this stock participated. And what happened? The group turned around the next day and the stock started going back up again. So this 10 period is very sensitive, but I like it sensitive because it alerts me to when there has been a sudden change. I hope that makes sense. Now what you can do is here's a 1 day pullback, here's a 1 day pullback, then a reversal. Here is a 2 day pullback, but it didn't pull back very far. But what you want to do is you always want to look closely at the candle. On this one, for instance, this red circle, see the wick down here? That means that not everybody was selling. Buyers are stepping in because this is just a shakeout. And the next day, you can see that it opened a little higher, and then the following day, volume came back into the stock, and the V-Poc was triggered again. And it has not looked back since. Now, you can find these V-Poc signals over here, the percent volume point of control, the percent close to the volume, percent close to the VPOC 1010. That is represented in the chart. That's what the green area means. If it's green, it's above the VPOC, and this tells you the number of days since it last fired. So what do you want to be looking for? You want to be looking for the zeros, because 0 means at the end of the day that stock fired. So let's look over here. Madrigal Pharmaceuticals. This was up 3% for the day at 210, which is when my last data is, unfortunately. It was up 95.63%. And volume was very heavy. And there was a signal yesterday. So let's bring this up. Wow, look at this. I don't know what happened, but it was obviously a news item. This stock would have been at the top or near the top of the list yesterday on this. Oh yes, sure, Andy. I will send the video out to everybody. It'll be on YouTube also. There's too much to digest as I go through this. And we're going to have another session. If I'm around next Friday, we'll do another session next Friday. But look at this. So this went from, this had to be earnings or some news. I'm not going to look at the news. But it opened here at 176, traded up to around 265 yesterday, and it followed through again today. Now, a stock like this is pretty tough to chase for an individual investor, especially. Just out of curiosity, MDGL. I'm going to put this in here. Whoops, it didn't go, did it? Okay, this was yesterday. This is a 30-minute chart. This is a 15-minute chart. This is a 3-minute chart. So it started moving up yesterday, pre-market, leveled out, and then it shot up again intraday. So if you would have seen this buyable gap up yesterday in the scorecard, you would have had to get in pretty early to catch the bulk of that, and I doubt if many of us are going to be chasing that stock. FDA report. Thank you, Mike. It helps, as Ian used to say, many hands make light work, and I just can't be diverted. But anyway, it was going up pre-market, so you would have seen it pre-market, and then when it opened, it shot up, but yet it continued. So what was this level? 221, got up to 2. It went from 222 on this candle, and it closed today at 272. So, you know, buyable gap up in the truest sense of the word right there. Okay, so let's look for another one that was up yesterday. So what does this one tell us? Just look across here and tell me what you see. It was up strongly today, and as I look at the VPA flags, they're all red here on this one, so it tells me it's more than likely a bottom fish. And that's exactly what it is, but the volume point of control turned green yesterday. So what happened? It gapped up. Okay. I don't want any of this stuff. It gapped up yesterday. Those who chased it got caught and shaken out. What happened today, though? Notice that it stayed green and buyers stepped in and bought it. It looks like it could be setting up. But it's a bottom fish. Keep that in mind. You're going to have, well, here, what do we see here, though? We see the 22-day and the 44-day. This is where all the volume activity has been. This is under accumulation down here. It tried to make a run and it got knocked back. And there is plenty of support in here. So just out of curiosity, on Monday, if this group continues to go up, look at this, had a 32 cent, 557% increase in earnings. That was in the December quarter. I don't know if earnings came out again and they're not in the database yet. We'd have to look. But there have been buyers under here. The people that are value buyers, so-called value buyers, are down here accumulating this stock. But the point is, it fired yesterday and it is still green again today. Let me see if I can find another, maybe a better example. Well, Lulu is a big mover today. It actually turned green yesterday. Am I getting today's? This is the way it. Yeah, that's today. $6.1. Okay. It didn't turn green yesterday. It turned green today with the 0. You know what I did? I ran a full update earlier with this machine, and I think that messed that up. Anyway, it's green today. This is a buyable gap up. If you have the money, and if you like to play these buyable gaps up, here's an opportunity. Or if I played this, I would buy a debit spread. I'd play a debit spread or a credit spread, but more than likely a debit spread. And what you do is you buy yourself some time, and you hope that it continues to go higher. A tremendous volume, 528.4% above normal. Now you can see the support is clear down here. It would have to drop a lot to challenge this 22-day or the 44-day, but that was it. Just crossed over. Now what I like to do on this also is sort. Oh, let's hear. I like to sort on this column, and I don't like to really necessarily go back this far, but you can see that some of these triggers happened a long time ago. Now this is a stock, we were talking about it in the Skype group yesterday, that none of us should have missed, and we all missed. It's a beautiful stock, and this is why you really need to pay attention all the time. Now here is the trigger. Look at that trigger down there. And these two circles indicate stopping volume. This here is a strength seen returning after a downtrend, and this is confirmation of that strength right here. And then it started moving up, and it never did penetrate this 1010 V-Poc again. You can see where support is now based upon 22 and 44. It still continues to move higher. Beautiful. I mean, it gives you some confidence in taking these trades. Here it fired before. There was a 1-day pullback, but there was also stopping volume. These VPA signals don't always work, but they're awfully good, and they do point out opportunities. That's a whole nother subject. I'm incorporating it in to this now. Now I'm obviously going to run out of time. What I want to do is I want to go over a couple of stocks, okay? I mentioned YEXT was at the top of the list earlier today. I don't know where it closed because my data is not quite up to date. But this was at the top of the list early today. It could have been purchased, and a nice percentage gain. You wouldn't have gotten the whole gain because it gapped up. But let's look at this one in Thinkorswim. 1698. All right. What do I have here? 1698. Well, that's the same price. Just out of curiosity, and I'll just do it for this. this stock here. Here's a 30-minute chart. Here is the 3-minute chart. So after the market opened, I saw it immediately after the market opened. I didn't buy this, unfortunately, but you can see that it moved up nicely, pulled back, a little shakeout, and then it closed here, closed up a penny in the aftermarket. Here's a 15-minute chart. But you can see that these are all stocks that were appearing. I put them in the list that were all appearing early. KEM, K-E-M. You can see that it moved up to 2084, pulled back a little at the close. Momo was a big stock today for the past couple of days, and I'm going to go look at it in HGSI. Lulu, which I just pointed out. IQ was another stock. What I'm pointing out here is they show up early, and you have opportunities to buy these stocks. Meat, I already pointed that out to you. Run, this is a stock I want to talk about before we go. SB is a stock I bought yesterday. USAT is a stock I bought a couple of days ago. It's going nowhere, but I want to show you why I'm still in it. Let's just talk about Run and USAT, okay? And then I've got to end this. But the point is, these are showing up early today. Okay, this is USAT. Application software. I bought it the other day, got stopped into it. I'm behind on it a little bit. I didn't sell it yesterday. It's struggling, but notice that it's still above the 10-period volume point of control. It's still green down here. I will make a decision on this stock probably at the end of each trading day. I'm not going to put a hard stop in on it. I'll put an alert in on it on Thinkorswim, but I am not real concerned about it yet because look at this selling, look at the volume falling off. This is where VPA comes in, or volume price analysis. There is not a lot of selling pressure on this stock. There's not a lot of buying pressure on it either, though. I mean, it started to move. It looked really good when I bought it, but then it fell back yesterday. But because the volume is going down, this volume point of control on the 10-day has not it has not triggered it, is what I'm trying to say. And notice that on the longer period, the blue line, it is finding support right there. So that's why I'm still in this stock. I could lose money on it, and that's the way it goes, but at least I have a reason or justification for what I'm doing. Okay, now let's look at, I'm having a senior moment here. What's the other one, Paul, that we got into yesterday? I don't know. Run, yeah, thank you. Beautiful setup. This is the kind of stock I like to buy. I like to buy stocks that have been moving up. And here, look at the consolidation at both the longer period volume point of control and the shorter period plus the 8-period volume point of control. Yesterday, we bought this 2 days ago, right? Not yesterday. On this effort to rise. Bought it right here. Had a buy stop in right in here. I think some people bought it a little cheaper than I did, with a stop down here at 1113, which is below the low of this candle. Why so close? Because I figure with all of this support right in here, if this stock broke out and failed, if it got down here, I don't want to own the stock. So that's why it's tight. But look at these VPA flags here. This is a no supply. Look over here, a sign of strength. This is a test of supply. Let me zoom in on this so you can see it better. This is a test of supply. Why is it a test? Because the volume's low. It opened here, it traded down. The wick was formed, it closed at its high. That is a test, a low volume test. This yellow triangle, an up bar closing near the high after a test, this is a 2-day signal. And it was a good signal because there was a doji the next day, still closed above the midpoint. The next day here, volume was, let me put the crosshair on, was still light, but it managed to close near the high. No selling pressure and demand. If there are no sellers and it closes near the high, what does that tell you? It tells you there's demand, right? And then seeing that, I put a buy stop in, Paul Reike put a buy stop in, peers did, several people did. And this is one of the stocks that we discussed in the Skype group. We don't always get it right, but we got this one right. So what's the percentage? I don't even know where this closed. I assume it closed at a pretty good place. But look what happened today. It opened immediately upon the open. There was a news story from Goldman Sachs about be wary of solar or something like that. Closed at 12:30. Okay, so what happened? It traded down. Some people got stopped out if they used a very tight trailing stop. I didn't move my stop. I want this one to have a little room to work. Let's look at it. You know why? Yeah, okay. That's 417 time. But is this a correct closing price? 1227? No, it's 1230. It's updating for some reason. It isn't updating correctly, so don't pay any attention to that, Stephen. So what happened? I didn't get. I put an alert in here. If it took out yesterday's low, I was going to look at it again, but it didn't, and I just didn't pay much attention to it. And what happened? Buyers stepped right back in. Volume's not as heavy as yesterday, but it was good. It got above the 50-day, 23% above the 50-day moving average volume. So what does this tell you? It tells us that there was early morning supply as a shakeout, but there is more demand than supply because it closed up near the high. And here's the effort today and the result. Here was the effort yesterday. Here's the result. Here's the effort the day before. Here's the result. You can see that volume was increasing. Not as much volume today, but that just tells me that people were hanging on to their shares other than those that got shaken out of it. Okay, I've got an hour and 17 minutes. I'm going to have to shut it down, but we'll carry this discussion on, and we'll be discussing this in the Skype room. I'm not trying to sell you anything here, but if you're a member of the Insider Club or a new user, you're welcome to join. Just send me an email and I'll send you the information. And Paul or Marilyn will admit you to the room. Any questions? Well, I must have explained it fairly well. There are subtleties in here that, we'll be discussing this for a long time. Thank you, everybody. You have a good weekend too, and I will, if I'm around next Friday, and as far as I know, I'm planning to be, but that could change. If I am, then we'll have another one of these sessions. The video will be out tomorrow. I'll send it to the Insider Club, and I will also post it for everybody to find. I'll probably put it on YouTube also. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. HGSI is the best program out there, especially in conjunction with Thinkorswim when I have my Thinkorswim working properly. Thank you. Bye. You're welcome, everybody.